Gorge is a community of connection, wellness, and purpose, taking action to better the world. We create safe spaces to bring people together, sharing our human experience, the highs, the lows, our fears, our dreams.
The Gorge community welcomes everyone to the table, to be seen and known as you are. You belong here.
Fueled by intention and authentic conversation, we learn, laugh, reflect, discover, and grow together.
We honor our individual and collective capacity for impact. As a community, we support and challenge each other to be a force for positive change, reach beyond ourselves, and see joy in every step. This is a journey.
A practice of being and becoming. Together.
Autumn Bay is one of my dearest friends. She's a daughter, a sister, a peaceful soul with a wild and open heart. Autumn is a professional dancer and dance instructor, has an occupational therapy master's, and has recently begun working in clothing design. We first crossed paths in Northern California, where we grew close, sharing in some of life's simplest pleasures. Conversations over tea, singing, and dancing, being real. Her presence and words always seemed to instill peace and ignite hope in me. Our conversation last week began with talking about recent life transitions and led us to where many of our conversations often do, love. Join us as Autumn beautifully shares her perspective on pride, expectations, love, and grace. I hope that it resonates with you. I enjoyed connecting with Autumn so much and cannot thank her enough for spending time with the Gorge community. Thanks for joining me tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Where are you recording from?
I am recording from my hometown, Louisville, Kentucky.
Great. I am currently sitting in Appleton, Wisconsin in my guest room studio. So I invited you to speak to the Gorge community because you are one of my dearest friends, and I connect with you on a very deep level as it relates to all of the joy and the hardship and the wonder of life. And so I just wanted to dig into things and pick at your brain and share some time together and talk about the things that are going on in the world, and see what shakes loose.
Let's do it. Yes.
Okay. So I think when I invited you to speak originally, I kind of threw out like, Autumn, what's going on in your life? What would you like to speak about? And we landed together on the theme of letting go and transition, and what that means when applied to life. And I know you've been working a lot and going through some transitions yourself. Do you want to speak to that at all?
Yes. I believe a good bit of us here on the planet are going through some major transitions with this year in particular. There have been a lot of changes that people have had to make with their work situations, with their home situations, how they're earning money, how they're just kind of navigating COVID and the political social scene that's going on. Mm-hmm. And for myself, I was in Southern California and decided that I was feeling like it was time for me to come back to my roots. I was kind of doing some inner work and come back to my roots. And I put in my notice. I was living right outside of Malibu, and I put in my notice and was kind of getting ready to go and gear up, and then bam, shelter in place. So plan B brought me to the mountains, about north in Fraser Park in the Los Padres Mountains. And there I did a lot of really beautiful healing, energetic work, and kind of dug into my heart really, and saw where it was closed and where I was having blocks, and did a lot of really important work. And that eventually it led me home right when I needed to get home. Instead of, I think that if I had gone home when I wanted to go home, it's no matter where you are, no matter where you go, there you are, that kind of theme. But after I did that inner work and I had this heart opening, I could see more of the world. I could see more of myself. I had a lot more love in myself, and that will translate into love in the world. So transitioning back home was even more meaningful and beautiful. And so I arrived here about a month ago, and I've been having to, I get to look at where my evolution is now and who I am in this place. Going from someplace like California to Kentucky it can be whiplash, and I've kept in touch, with my family. I tried to come home from year to year, but it is a very different place. So it is a big transition. Mm-hmm. And I knew that it wasn't going to be easy, and it was going to be easy in some ways and very difficult in others, but that's all part of transitioning. I think if you're going to do any transitioning gracefully, if that can be done, you have to expect the hard times, and you have to be okay when things get hard and how you feel with those hard times.
Yeah. What I hear stick out even from that story of the transition is, in the very beginning, you said it felt like it was time to go. It was time to leave California. And I guess I have two questions. One, was it a calling to somewhere else, or was it a feeling that this is not where you were supposed to be? Was something pulling you in a direction, or was it a feeling of, maybe I'm not here, I'm going to go look for greener pastures or something that feels more right? In the transition period, I know personally myself, I have had a mixture of both. I've had, this is my direction, I'm being called to go here, versus I think my time here is done, not sure what's next, and I will go with the wind. And from what I know with you, that has been a bit of what you have done in your life so far. Just in knowing you for the time that I have, Autumn Bay has gone with the wind. And so I want to know, was this a similar move, or was this different?
This was different. Before my moves, I would say my moves were, I can't say the word intentional. They were more planned in the sense that I was going somewhere to achieve something. There was some kind of goal in mind. And, to speak on what you just said, it's kind of that saying, are you running away from something or towards something? This time I kind of had a deconstruction. I was 2019, I came back home to visit family. And then when I came back to LA, I was kind of feeling like this is a strange place. Even though I'd been there for over a year, I was kind of looking around and kind of feeling lost there, kind of all over again. And in that moment, I started this deconstruction process. I was doing a lot of hiking, and I was on the trail one day, and I might have been listening to some Joe Dispenza, Dr. Joe, and it was about what's your point here? Are you trying to prove something? If it's a struggle to be somewhere that you want to be, or if it's just a struggle to be somewhere, do you really want to be there? And I was feeling like, okay, well, I want to live here for a little while, but how long? And so I started feeling this question, what's your point now? How much longer do you want to be here? What do you want to accomplish here? So once I started to get into that and understand that perhaps something that was important to me was for me to either prove to myself or others that I could be adaptable anywhere. I could move to a big city. I've moved to New York or Portland, or I've moved to the sticks. I can move, kind of at a drop in the hat, and then I can exist there. I can make friends. I can navigate my way around. I can drive. I can figure things out. I can work. And after I asked myself that question, I felt this beautiful release. Like I don't need to keep doing something that I've done so many times, because I know that I can do it, and everybody else knows that I can do it. So why do I have to keep doing it? And when I really sat with that and I thought about it, I did think about what was most important to me and what I wanted more than anything. And that was to be with my family again and be with the people that I love the most. If I had my druthers, I would have my whole family out to California with me, but there's so many of them. And I really wanted to reconnect with them and ultimately really get into this raw sense of self. There's no hiding when you're with your family. There's no lying. There's no pretending to be somebody that you're not. You can do that anywhere else in the world. You can invent yourself and everywhere. But there was something really cathartic about being with the people that know you the most, especially with your brothers and sisters who still see you as the baby of the family, and observe yourself in that environment and be your authentic self. So I suppose the short of the long of it, or the long of the short of it, however you say, is that I think I was feeling tired because I was running some race for maybe no one anymore, and running the same race that I'd already won a long time ago. And I was ready to be me and see me back in my origin. And that led me home.
This is why I love speaking with you, because I've already feeling internally a lot of the words that you're saying, and I'm always able to, I don't know if it's the harmony or pace or whatever you speak with that helps me to reflect and internalize. And I have so many questions, but I also have a little story I want to share just about what you said. When you mentioned pride or proving yourself in an unknown territory or something like that, I think that's something that I have been navigating recently. And mine looks like this. It looks like there is space between when I have seen my friends in the spring and when I've seen my friends in the late summer and fall. And what have I done with that time in between? It is a difficult time for many reasons right now. You can cite COVID, you can cite the Black Lives Matter movement, you can cite climate change and everything going on with that. And the world is hurting and the world is struggling. And oddly enough, more than ever, I'm feeling a challenge, and I'm challenging myself to be the best that I can be. Almost to a fault. I feel like I have this pride that even with everything going on, I want to do more, be better, show that I'm not just surviving during this time, but I'm actually thriving and working on something and improving myself. What have you done with your quarantine COVID time? Look back on 2020 and say, I didn't just survive, I kicked ass. And so I want to work on projects. I want to work on social change. I'm working on this house that I moved to. I started a new job. Check it out. And it's this interesting internal dialogue that I have that I want to prove that I can do that. And I think it's something that I've put on myself, and oftentimes it's good. It's a good stress, but there are some times when I ask myself, what am I doing this for? Is that the priority only, to just show that I can do more than survive a really, really tough time? That I can be better than that? And that has been partially a struggle that I've had, and something that I'm working on right now. That's where a lot of my energy has gone, outside of all the projects and other things that I'm doing, is trying to navigate what is my intention and purpose behind what I'm doing. And when it really feels aligned and I can put back the pieces and say, these are my priorities, and yeah, I am working really hard, but it's not to prove something. It's to be real, and it's to go with, what's calling me and driving me. Then I settle back into things and it feels better, even though I'm kind of doing the same action. So anyway, I just wanted to share that because I think that's, the conversation of what am I trying to prove? That strikes home to me right now.
I think that has everything to do with, purpose. And what I know of you is that you are goal oriented, you are progressive, you are always growing and kind of expanding and trying to achieve, that's who you are in the planet. It's not who everybody is or who everyone needs to be, but I think that's something that you've chosen for yourself. And I think that with the pandemic that's going on, or with the social things that are going on, and with the natural disasters that are going on, that can prove as a catalyst for a lot of people to do better, an opportunity to inspire people to do things. If you don't do anything, does that make you a bad person? Absolutely not. It speaks to some people, and I think it really speaks to you. And the part about proving, yes, I do believe that when we have goals, when we have intention, things that we're going for, we do want to prove things to ourselves. If we care anything about being better or having pride in ourselves, we want to prove things to ourselves. Mm-hmm. But I believe that is definitely something that is important to you, to have something to strive for, but you've always been in service to others. And so the way that I see you is that the better you get, the more you can serve the world. I mean, this podcast, for example, is a contribution to other people to help them thrive. So sometimes you say something like, oh, I'm just trying to prove this to myself and I'm really tired. But maybe on the back end of that, that what you're doing is going to make a really powerful impact for other people. So it gives you more juice. And the last point that I'll make about proving things to ourselves is that I think it's always okay to want to be proud of ourselves and want to prove something to ourselves. The part where we get in trouble is when we fall short of that, is the conditional love. I didn't do what I set out to do. Mm-hmm. I didn't prove this thing to myself, so I don't love myself as much as if I would have. And so separating pride and having pride and taking pride in oneself and having unconditional love for oneself, the two shouldn't be linked. I mean, they're linked intrinsically, but if you fail, the love that you have for yourself should always be the same. It should always be the same.
Yeah. Thank you for that, first of all. I think the other piece that I have been much more aware of now that I am also living with my significant other, my person, is what that looks like in terms of having a mirror in front of you constantly. Mm. I always have this person checking in with me and saying, is this what you want to be doing? Why are you doing that? How are you spending your energy? And it's been really powerful and really moving. I have had to explain myself, not only to myself, but to another person, which helps me to reflect and keep me moving and in a state of unconditional appreciation for what I'm doing. But I've also had to ask permission, whether that's to Angela or to myself or both at the same time of, we were laughing the other day. We said, sometimes we want to be balanced so well. We want to be able to balance work and play and joy and sorrow and all of these things because that is healthy. It is healthy to have balance. But almost by trying to balance adds almost another task during the day. And so we have found that lately it's actually okay to give ourselves permission to have a full day of work and or a full day of relaxing. And we're not going to do the dishes tonight. And we're not going to maybe do the project that we said we were going to do because we're gassed at the end of the day. Or maybe we're going to work 9 hours straight on this project around the house because we said we were going to get it done and we got into the flow and we got into the groove. And it's okay that we didn't take too much time to breathe because we can tomorrow. Mm-hmm. Balance doesn't have to be on a microcosm of hour to hour, day to day. Sometimes it looks like week to week or even month to month, depending on what's going on in your life. And that's a lesson that I've been learning, is letting go and permitting myself to be out of the concept of balance, at least on a day-to-day basis. And that's allowed me to be more open with time and energy and love. Anyway, that's my transition. So I don't know if that sounds like anything you've been going through, but
Absolutely. I think everyone wants to have this elusive balance in their life. It sounds more like what you're describing is flow. And the difference to me, when I think of balancing, I think of things that hold weight and how you're distributing weight evenly on one side or the other. So it's, I'm going to divide my day into, I'm going to do this for 20 minutes and this for 20 minutes and that for 20 minutes. And we're going to go over here. But if your flow, if your inner desire is that I need to play guitar for 2 hours, and that's not going to leave me any time to take a bath or do the dishes or, make this phone call to somebody when I'm really tired, then that's not a good balance. You can say that I've balanced my time, but not my energy. So going where your energy takes you, sometimes you have to force yourself to do certain, chores that must be done, that sometimes make you feel better when you're done. It's like exercise, maybe that, I don't feel like exercising, I'm tired, and then you do it and you're like, I'm so glad that I did it. So being in flow is the balancing act. It's, of course, not to overindulge in one thing or another, and make sure that you hit all your important things. But I really like what that conversation about when you spread it out over a longer period of time versus like in one day, I have to chop up all these little things. Then you have more freedom, you have more time, you have more flow, and then there's more room for spontaneity. And spontaneity is where you get your inspiration, your creativity. So if everything's all chopped up and balanced out, where's the room for the magic?
I think that's beautiful. A question, and something that I have wanted to hear a little bit more and have you speak on a little bit, is your experience as a dancer. You just talked a little bit about embodiment and flow, and it just brings me back to the fact that I know that you practice as a professional dancer, a professional dance instructor, for a large period of your life. So how has that affected your idea of flow and movement? I just feel like I have a very visual, visceral response when I view dancing. And I know you do too. So I'd just love to just let you speak about it for a little bit.
Okay. So as a ballroom and Latin dancer, everything is movements. There are choreographed movements. There are amalgamations that you follow. There's technique. There is a lot of structure. It's not like a free flow, organic, ecstatic dance in that regard. So that you have these molds that you're putting your body into, and you have these routines. But the beautiful thing about all of that is that you have to put your own mustard on it. I mean, you come through anyway. Everybody has their own style. And while you have to hit a beat at a certain, or you have to hit the music on a certain beat, that's timing, it could be a 16th of a second on either end, whatever you're accentuating, that makes it come through in a different way. And to me, that's like, a fingerprint on a person, or all of us, billions of humans. How are we different? And we are also different because of that, those little millimeters. And so dancing for me and flow have to do with how I'm connecting all of those structured movements. It's the space in between. That's what it is. It's the space in between. How are you getting from A to B? What is your style? What is your mustard that you're putting on it? Who are you when you hit that line and you're going into the next one? And dancing is just, it's such a beautiful art form, because even if you have two people, dancing the same routine and synchronicity, you look at those two dancers and they are different, even though everything's at the same time and they're hitting everything. And that to me is just, it's such a beautiful way to look at how all humans are different, and how we move through life differently, and how we express ourselves is so different, even if we're doing the same things. I kind of got off. Maybe I got.
I like
tangent.
that. What I want to ask, so I have this beautiful metaphor that's kind of stirring in my head, at least I think. And the question goes something like, as a dancer, I would imagine that your technique improved as you continued to, practice and teach. And then I would imagine that your flair and your mustard, as you would say it, that you added also changed and maybe opened and maybe, grew or evolved over your time as a dancer. Do you feel that that is also the same in terms of how you are navigating life? Do we grow wiser, and does our flavor change over life? And what does that feel like to you? Does that change how you're dancing through life right now? Somewhere
Yes.
in there, that's kind of the feeling that I want to ask.
Yes. And life is a dance. Absolutely. I love that question. As you become better at what you're doing, of course, you become more efficient, and there's more time that you have to play in between those moments. There's more that you can do. You also become quite nimble, and that means that when you, for example, when I'm competing, I'm on the dance floor, the judges their eyes are on you, and you have to hit all of these lines. You're doing these choreographed routines. You mess up. You might roll your foot a certain way, or you forget a step, or another couple gets in your way and you have to switch it up quickly. Is recovering. In life, we have our plans. We do our thing, and then we have to recover. I got a flat tire. I have to recover. I have my appendix burst. I have to recover. There is COVID. We all have to recover. We have to be able to be nimble. And that grace part of it is so important, right? Dancing through life is, these things are going to come up when you get a flat tire. How are you going to react to that? I can't believe this is happening to me. I can't get to work. I can't do this. This is horrible. It's the worst thing that's ever happened.
Not me. It can't happen to me.
Exactly. What am I going to do? But at the end of the day, it happens to almost everyone that, that drives or, rides a bike or something, somebody somewhere has a flat tire. Metaphorically speaking, there's a bump in the road and you hit it. And I remember I had a flat tire once. I was doing a cross country trip. I've done quite a few of those, and I had a flat tire. I was so thankful. It happened to be a really nice day. And my spare I was moving, all of my stuff was in the trunk of my car. So I had to unpack everything out of the back of my car and get the spare tire. And I didn't have the right tools. I think I didn't have the wrench or whatever I needed. So I'm waiting for roadside assistance. And I just decided to sit in the grass, and it was a beautiful day. There was beautiful green grass, and there was like cows and dogs and down the way at this farm. And I decided to kind of meditate and just enjoy that time that I had there and dream about what was going to happen when I got to my destination. And then the roadside came, and bam, lickety split, I'm on my way. It was time to go. And it's what you do with that time when you're waiting or when you're not on your way somewhere. How do you choose to spend that time while you're recovering? Are you going to dwell on how terrible things are, how long it's taking for somebody to come and help you, or how far back, how much time you've wasted on your trip? You can do all of that, but you can pull out your guitar, or you can listen to some music, or you can take a nap. You can do something else. And so to me, that is the ultimate dance through life. Is sometimes you have to dance to sad music or it's the elimination round, and they've got you going and spinning to see who's going to stay there. You just keep dancing, and it will work out. It will work out. And that's what I always tell myself. It's going to work out some kind of way.
And the image of, and the word choice of recovering and being nimble, very dance. I just feel, I feel that. But I think for anyone who's listening, and for me personally, I think what we're talking about are the buzzwords of expectations and failure and letting go, when those things happen, but you have practiced for so long and you stumble, what do you do? How do you let go of that expectation of I have put in so much time, or I was going to get here? What does that look like for you? What is that process of you realize that you've stumbled? And sometimes there are overt stumbles. There are very obvious, like the flat tire. And sometimes there are subtle stumbles and subtle realizations of maybe I'm not heading in the direction I thought I was. And this doesn't feel good. I tried something and it doesn't feel good. Things were going well until they weren't, until you realized maybe that wasn't what you wanted anymore. It wasn't what was meant for you. And how do you dance around that? That is, I think, a more difficult thing to do. And what does that look like for you?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, I did go into a program once, and I completed the program with the intention of kind of having the skill under my belt and teaching it. And then something happened, and I was completely uninterested or disinterested in this thing. And, I hear that like, oh, you went to school for that, and you had all this training, and you spent all that time doing it.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, I think a lot of people have had that experience. I have invested this time, and at the end of the road, it didn't feel right.
Mm-hmm. I think that if you sentence yourself to something and say, when I finish this thing, this is my path and this is what I'm doing, and then you get there and you try it and you don't like it, or you get halfway there and you're thinking to myself, this isn't for me. I believe that this word that you said, it doesn't go well, I think that your intuition telling you that that's not for you, that is going well. That means that there's something inside of you that's telling you that something is good for you or not good for you. And some people it's broken and they just do the thing that everyone wants them to do or they think they have to do. And then they're stuck in this life that they don't love. But
they're not sure why, they're not like, yes. It's hard to maybe realize, or pinpoint, this is the thing that doesn't feel good.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. They stick themselves in that. And I know lots of people, maybe 8 or 10 people or something like that, who were in the corporate world or who worked in law, who left it. I know somebody that's in the corporate world that left corporate world and now is a full-time pet sitter, and she loves her life, absolutely loves her life.
Right.
She was miserable before.
Mm-hmm.
And so when a lot of times those expectations, you have to check if they're yours or if they're society's. Are they your parents? Are they your peers? Are they the world telling you that as long as you're in this job and you're doing this and you're making this money, then you're successful, and you're dying inside and you're miserable? Are you really successful? Are you truly successful? You don't have that much time on the planet. No one does. Mostly it's just right now, right? We can say right now because we never know if the next day is going to come for whomever. But in the grand scheme of things, we have patients that we see that are 100 years old from time to time.
Right.
And it sounds lovely, but even they can tell you that that's not a whole lot of time. Mm-hmm. So to spend your life doing something and to stay in something when you are not happy, or you think that you have to because of all of the work that you put behind it, to keep reading a book that because you've read half of it and you hate it. I already read half, so I have to read the second half. It's not a good use of time. In my world, it's not a good use of time. Now, if you get 3/4 of the way through a program or 90% of the way there, it might be worth seeing it through the end and dabbling in it to see if it changes, just to finish it, just so that you did it.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, a halfway point it's halfway. Check in. Is this really for me? How do I feel about this? So the way that I am, I can change courses quickly because I feel my mortality. I know the clock. I hate to say that phrase, the clock is ticking, because time is this construct, but to know that we're fleeting and that the time that we have goes by in an instant. I'm not going to sit around for too long. And
it's so precious. It's
mm-hmm.
so precious.
Yeah.
Yeah. The time that we invest and the time that is now is what we have, like you said. And with all of that being said, you know, you said that recently you were doing some internal work. Did some of that relate to honing that skill a little bit and trying to figure out and filter and sift through what does Autumn want now and going forward? And so what is the move? Because I do think in our day-to-day lives that get busy, we all fall prey to feeling and being busy, kind of realigning with what feels good and feels like the next move. And, you know, if we're talking about time being precious and, you know, you were out in California and you were doing those things and it took some time to then sift through and say, this isn't where I'm meant to be anymore. Is that where the transition a little bit started? You know, you talk about this internal work, or what does that look like for you?
Mm-hmm. Well, two things. One has to do with expectations, like that you were talking about earlier. Expectations. What do we expect from ourselves? And I believe that I had all of these expectations, and as we know, expectations can lead to disappointment. Mm-hmm. So expecting certain things to happen in a certain way they were leading me to certain disappointments. So I had to wonder why I had certain expectations, and then what expectations were, and then the conditional love. I had an expectation about something that was to happen or not happen, and if it didn't happen, then there was that love, like my love for self would kind of get dinged. And the other thing was trigger. I think I was experiencing triggers when I came back, and for some reason, I think that all of us get triggered from time to time, but for some reason I got very triggered, and I asked myself this question: why does this happen to me? Why is this happening to me? Like the tire. Why is this happening to me? And in that same breath, I came back to, how do I keep creating this? How am I creating this? So I took this responsibility for this thing that I thought was being acted upon me or on me. And I was thinking of this external force being kind of acted on me, instead of my internal being creating the thing that I'm seeing. Mm-hmm. And so I decided to do this work, because this inner work, because, you know, what your podcast is all about is living insatiably and living in your authentic truth. And I wanted that. I feel like I was, maybe when I got that trigger, I felt like a victim somehow. And that's not the place I wanted to be. That's not who I knew that wasn't my truth in the world, but what was my truth? So when I started to peel back all of these layers and get into my fears, my whole point was, what is holding me back? And everything that's holding you back is you. So in what ways am I blocking myself from living my most authentic self in my complete truth? And when you uncover those things, you can look and see at the world you create and what you're doing with your time in your life and who you're spending your time with, to see if that really resonates with your truth or not. Mm-hmm. Instead of trying to please someone or trying to satisfy some construct somewhere. Yeah. And it was just the time that I had to do it. I got very lucky. I moved out of LA to be out of the city and that population. I love LA. I wasn't there. I was only there for maybe a year and a half, but I really, really loved it and loved the people that I was able to connect with. But I was able to go up into the mountains and really get quiet. And that's when I got triggered, when I was in the mountains. And when that happened, I really wanted to dive into why. So I would love if everybody would ask themselves those questions when someone does something to you, when something happens to you. It's happening for you so that you can understand, why do you get triggered by this?
Mm-hmm.
What is it in you that bothers you so much about what somebody else says about you or does to you, or how they live their life or move in that way? And I really got set free. I mean, it really brought me to this place of so much inner love, that with all of the social and political things that are going on, as a woman of color, as a biracial woman of color, I have so much of this unconditional love that I can see both sides. And I can see someone that is over here waving a flag, a Black Lives Matter flag, and they want to set everything on fire. And I totally understand it. And I totally get it. And I look at them with love and with compassion. And I see someone over here waving a Confederate flag. And I love this person and I have compassion for this person, because maybe this person doesn't understand things, both of them. They're two extremes.
Mm-hmm.
And those extremes are why there's fighting, why there's fire. When you can come together, I feel like I've come to this place in my heart where I can understand and I have space for both sides. That's where we can come together and sit down at a table and talk about things. It's not throwing fire from 100 yards away at each other. That's war. So all of the inner work that I started this year has led me to this really beautiful, peaceful, and powerful place of truth and authenticity. And it's how I've been able to stay calm and peaceful and loving and offer myself in ways I never thought, to all sides, to all kinds of people going through all sorts of different things.
Mm-hmm. I think it's very powerful to hear your perspective on the Black Lives Matter movement, and that transition and that shift in perspective in your life. I think it's incredibly powerful. I know that social change, political change, it doesn't happen quickly. It doesn't happen overnight. You can't force it. But I respect the people that are out there protesting. I respect and support the movement wholeheartedly. But I can't help but to agree with you and say that at the end of the day, the unification and coming to the same table to have real change versus a war of attrition of who's going to protest or last longer and stand that many more hours. Who's going to win out on that and then just give up and accept the fate, accept, the will of the other side versus coming to the table. And this idea of unconditional love and acceptance and space, I think we can probably all use a little more of that. With the last half of this conversation, a lyric has popped into my head.
Oh, wonderful.
We're talking about dancing and we're talking about love. And one of my favorite lyrics, to be 100% honest with everyone, I don't know a whole lot of music by this particular artist, but I do know this song. And the song title is Hold On When You Get Love and Let Go When You Give It. And there is this chorus line that is just repeating, and it repeats and it repeats and it repeats. Hold on when you get love and let go when you give it. And when we talk about letting go of expectations and conditions and those type of things, I think that's what you have to do when you're loving. When you're fully loving, you have to let go of all of those things to love. But if there's anything that's worth holding on to, I think it's the same. So I think it's this lovely thing. I get a little choked up when I talk about it.
I love that. My godfather, Sarah, God rest his soul, he used to always tell me, Autumn, if you love something, you have to hold it with an open hand. Mm-hmm. If you close your hand, you'll crush it, you'll squeeze it, you'll suffocate it. So you always hold it with an open hand. And that old saying, if you love something, let it go, right?
Yep.
And that's true, because if you continue to squeeze something or hold on to something when it's not time for you to have it, then it turns into something else.
Yeah.
And ultimately, if you do love something, this is the bittersweet part, right? If you do love something, that thing that you're holding on to is the love itself. It's not the object.
Yes.
It's not this beautiful apartment that I just want to have forever, in my car, or this relationship that I want to last forever and all eternity. It's the dream job. Yes, I want it to last forever. My fame, I want it to last forever and ever and ever. But if you just appreciate the love of enjoying it and having it right now,
you can hold that. That is something you can hold.
Yes. Well, nothing is ours anyway. Everything's impermanent. So if you think you're going to hold on to something forever, you're mistaken. That's where you get disappointed. That's an expectation that I have this thing that I want, so I'm going to keep it forever. If you immediately look at something and appreciate it and love it right then and there and say, this love is mine forever, but I'm ready to let this go at any moment, that is true love. That's true fulfillment. That's freedom, and that's unconditional love. And it's what I've found about doing work, and what's frustrating, I think, is that people will do their inner work and then they get triggered again, and then they get all upset. And I did all this work and I was feeling so good, and now I just feel like crap all over again. Is that you think that you do this work and that then nothing bad is going to happen. You're never going to get a flat tire ever again. And that's not true. You're always going to get flat tires.
Right.
But who are you in that moment when it happens? And what are you going to do with the time that it takes to fix those things? That's what it's all about. The storm is always going to keep coming at you. So having this expectation that you fixed things and that I know how to let go. I've worked on it. Now I know how to let go. You're going to have so many opportunities every day for weeks, years, to constantly see who you are when it's time to let go. And when you're squeezing something too tightly, those lessons are always going to be there.
Thanks so much again for listening to the Gorge Community Podcast. We hope you're staying connected during these times. If you'd like to help us connect with even more people, please share or comment on our Facebook and Instagram at Gorge Community. We want to hear from you. Sending big love to you all.